The tension on set was palpable from the start. Dwayne Johnson, known for his calm charisma, arrived at Good Morning America expecting a straightforward interview to promote his latest project. George Stephanopoulos, however, seemed to have other plans. As cameras rolled and polite banter gave way to pointed questions, the air in the studio thickened. Johnson's expression tightened subtly as Stephanopoulos began pressing him on recent political rumors and social media commentary topics. Unrelated to the film he was there to discuss. Trying to steer things back to his work, Dwayne answered diplomatically, but George doubled down. The anchor's tone sharpened, interrupting Johnson mid-sentence. A flicker of frustration flashed in Dwayne's eyes. He paused, leaned back in his chair, and removed his microphone calmly but firmly. Asterisk, I came here out of respect for this show and your audience, he said, his voice measured but unmistakably edged with finality. But if this is the angle you're choosing, I'm not going to play along. With that, he stood up, adjusted his jacket, and walked off set without another word. The studio went dead silent. Stephanopoulos blinked, visibly caught off guard. And the producers quickly cut to commercial. Within minutes, social media exploded. Clips of the walk-off were replayed across platforms, and public opinion was swift to form. Many praised Dwayne for holding his ground with quiet dignity, calling it a masterclass in knowing when to walk away. Others criticized the host for turning a promotional appearance into an ambush. Regardless of which side they took, everyone agreed. The moment was unforgettable, a sharp reminder that even in the spotlight, boundaries matter. Asterisk backstage, crew members exchanged stunned glances while scrambling to recover the show's flow. Meanwhile, Johnson was already out of the building, declining to comment to waiting photographers. Back in the studio, Stephanopoulos attempted to resume hosting duties, but viewers noticed a rare unease in his delivery. The internet, however, was already ablaze. Hashtags like #RockWalkOff and #Stephanopoulos vs Johnson trended globally. Analysts and entertainment reporters flooded their feeds with reactions, dissecting every expression and gesture from the clip. Public figures chimed in, some calling Johnson's move bold and necessary, others wondering whether live interviews had become more about bait than dialogue. Amid the firestorm, Dwayne released a brief post on X. Respect is earned, not demanded, especially on camera. The statement only fueled the debate, turning what could have been just another promo stop into a viral flashpoint and a defining moment in celebrity media dynamics. Asterisk, as the dust settled, the ripple effects of the confrontation began to surface across the entertainment industry. Talk show hosts and publicists alike took note of the fallout, with several reevaluating their approach to interviews moving forward. George Stephanopoulos, while silent at first, eventually addressed the moment in a clipped segment days later, offering a lukewarm acknowledgement that things got off track. But for many, it wasn't enough. Critics pointed out the shift in tone during that GMA segment wasn't accidental. It reflected a larger problem with how media treats high-profile guests, probing less to inform and more to provoke. Meanwhile, Johnson, known for his usually affable demeanor, had inadvertently redrawn the line for acceptable treatment during press appearances. His walk-off wasn't just an act of frustration, it was a silent stand for professional boundaries. It sent a message. Even the most easygoing public figures have limits, and when those are crossed, they won't hesitate to leave, even live on air. Asterisk, in the weeks that followed, the incident took on a life of its own. Late-night hosts, pundits, and podcasters all took turns weighing in, some spinning the moment for laughs, others digging deeper into its implications. Dwayne Johnson, however, remained largely silent, refusing interviews and steering his public narrative through carefully. Curated social media posts focused on positivity, work ethic, and respect. His silence only amplified his stance, allowing fans and media personalities to project broader meanings onto the incident. Think pieces emerged, exploring the tension between celebrity culture and journalistic ethics. Meanwhile, ratings for Good Morning America dipped briefly as backlash from Johnson's fanbase led to waves of online criticism. Sponsors took notice. Behind closed doors, networks started revisiting guest protocols, balancing hard-hitting journalism with basic courtesy. What began as a tense moment during a morning interview had now sparked a wide conversation about power, poise, and where media lines shouldn't be drawn. Asterisk, asterisk, despite the storm, Dwayne Johnson's public image only grew stronger. Fans and colleagues praised his restraint, calling his quiet exit a masterclass in self-control and dignity. Hollywood insiders hinted that studios were even more eager to work with him, seeing his refusal to engage in media theatrics as a sign of maturity and brand integrity. Meanwhile, some of Stephanopoulos' peers in journalism faced scrutiny over similarly aggressive interview tactics, prompting internal reviews at several networks. The clash had become symbolic more than just celebrity drama. It was now seen as a cultural moment exposing the fragile relationship between fame and the media institutions meant to cover it. While Johnson never directly addressed the issue again, his actions spoke louder than any tweet or press release. He returned to the spotlight on his own terms, proving that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's power, especially when done with the calm confidence of someone who knows their worth. Asterisk in time. The moment etched itself into entertainment history not as a scandal, but as a shift in tone. Clips of Johnson's departure from GMA continued to circulate, often framed not in ridicule, but admiration. Training montages from his films were remixed with the walk-off scene, underscoring the idea that standing up for oneself could be just as heroic as anything on screen. At press junkets and award shows, reporters noticeably softened their edges when interviewing high-profile figures. The media landscape, ever reactive, began quietly adapting. George Stephanopoulos' team released no further statements. Though he continued hosting, some viewers noted a more cautious air in his demeanor post-incident. Johnson, meanwhile, resumed his project's new films, charity appearances, motivational messages, never once looking back at that morning on live television. And yet, without saying another word, he had forced a national conversation on respect, accountability, and the quiet strength of knowing when enough is enough. Asterisk, the cultural aftershocks of the incident rippled into unexpected places. Universities used the clip in media ethics courses, dissecting the boundaries between journalistic inquiry and provocation. PR agencies revised their prep strategies for celebrity clients, incorporating mock confrontations to help talent maintain composure. Under pressure, Dwayne Johnson, without lifting a finger to escalate the situation, had become a case study in effective boundary setting. His refusal to engage in verbal warfare, his measured silence, and his exit not out of weakness, but out of principle, became a blueprint for dignified dissent. Fans rallied behind him, not just for who he was, but for what he represented: strength with grace, confidence without arrogance, and power that didn't need to shout. In contrast, the media's relentless pursuit of viral moments began to show its cracks, as audiences started valuing authenticity over spectacle. Johnson's walk-off had become more than a headline. It had become a turning point in how stars choose to protect their voice in a world that so often tries to take it from them. Asterisk months later, when Johnson finally spoke about the encounter briefly, during a podcast about leadership, he didn't name names or rehash the conflict. Instead, he emphasized the importance of emotional intelligence and knowing when to remove yourself from a space that no longer respects your presence. The remark was subtle but profound, echoing far beyond celebrity culture into everyday lives. Leaders quoted it, coaches printed it, parents shared it with their kids. It wasn't about storming off. It was about choosing peace over performance. By not engaging in the chaos, Johnson had flipped the script. He didn't need to clap back or seek vindication. He let the world draw its own conclusions, and they did, overwhelmingly in his favor. From boardrooms to barbershops, the phrase "pulling a Dwayne" became shorthand for walking away with dignity when things turned toxic. What began as an awkward moment on morning TV had evolved into a lesson in presence, restraint, and the quiet kind of strength that never needs to raise its voice to be heard. Asterisk. Eventually, even Good Morning America couldn't ignore the impact of what had unfolded. Though no formal apology was issued, the show's tone subtly shifted. Interviews grew more thoughtful. Segments highlighted mental wellness, and celebrity guests were treated with a newfound courtesy. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly adjusted their briefing protocols, ensuring guests were never blindsided again. Dwayne Johnson's graceful exit had done what few could. It had reshaped the unwritten rules of high-profile media engagement. He had held a mirror to the system not through outrage, but through stillness. And that mirror reflected more than just journalistic bravado. It revealed a hunger for conversations grounded in mutual respect. For Johnson, there was no need to capitalize on the moment. He didn't write it to lull or spark a feud. He simply moved forward, more respected than ever, his silence louder than any on-air clash. And in doing so, he reminded everyone, celebrity or not, that walking away from chaos isn't surrender. It's mastery. Asterisk, over time. The phrase "know your worth and walk" became synonymous with that morning on GMA. It wasn't just a Dwayne Johnson moment, it was a cultural reset. Talk show hosts across networks took note, rethinking how far they pushed for a headline. Publicists encouraged clients to maintain boundaries, and fans celebrated authenticity over sensationalism. Johnson himself never weaponized the attention. He let the moment breathe, refusing to let it define him. Instead, he poured his energy into community projects and film roles that reflected values. He stood for integrity, resilience, and purpose. When asked months later how he handled the backlash, Johnson simply said, "Not everything deserves your energy." The internet echoed his words like a mantra. His action, or rather, his inaction, became a beacon for a generation rethinking confrontation. In a world obsessed with going viral, Dwayne Johnson taught millions something timeless. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't the loudest stits, the walk that follows silence. Asterisk in the aftermath. Good Morning America faced increasing pressure to address the confrontation publicly. While the network never issued a formal apology, subtle acknowledgments surfaced in interviews and commentaries, hinting at a lesson learned behind the curtain. Viewers, once passive consumers of morning drama, became vocal advocates for respect and sincerity in media. Meanwhile, Dwayne Johnson's quiet strength during the ordeal began to influence not just entertainment culture, but workplace environments, classrooms, and social media discourse. Memes transformed the moment into a digital parable walk. Like The Rock, they said, celebrating restraint over retaliation. Without a single retaliatory comment, Johnson had flipped a hostile narrative and emerged more admired than ever. His walk-off wasn't just a moment, it was a masterclass. He had proven that you don't need to dominate a conversation to win it. Sometimes, leaving the room speaks louder than any mic drop ever could. Asterisk, as weeks turned into months, the incident evolved into a case study in media ethics and celebrity autonomy. Communication experts dissected the moment in classrooms and seminars, emphasizing how Johnson's poise under pressure showcased emotional discipline. Psychologists praised his decision as a model for conflict resolution, especially in high-stakes public arenas where egos often collide. His silence wasn't just golden, it was strategic. Instead of fueling the fire, he extinguished it by stepping away, and in doing so, he shifted the conversation from spectacle to substance. His fan base grew, not just in number, but in loyalty, united by a shared respect for his actions. Meanwhile, George Stephanopoulos faced a quiet reckoning, with subtle shifts in his on-air demeanor suggesting lessons learned. And for the countless viewers watching from their living rooms, the message was clear. Walking away doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means choosing peace without sacrificing power. It means knowing who you are and never needing to prove it. Asterisk, the legacy of that morning didn't fade, it matured. Months later, when Dwayne Johnson returned to a different network for an interview, the energy in the room was noticeably different. The host greeted him with measured warmth, and the conversation unfolded with mutual respect. Audiences noticed. Headlines no longer sought drama, they celebrated grace. Fans recalled the GMA walk-off as the moment The Rock redefined what strength looked like, not as physical dominance, but as self-respect in motion. And artists, athletes, and even politicians began citing the incident when describing how they chose to disengage from toxic environments. It had become more than a viral clip, it was a cultural checkpoint, Johnson never revisited the details. He didn't need to. The world had watched, learned, and adjusted. And in his calm retreat from chaos, he had issued a challenge, louder than any argument. How do you show up for yourself when the world tests your limits? For Dwayne Johnson, the answer was simple. Walk tall, walk true, and when necessary, just walk away. Asterisk, by the time awards season rolled around, Dwayne Johnson's presence on red carpets and talk shows carried a different weight. No longer just a global icon known for action roles and charisma, he had become a quiet symbol of dignity under pressure. When asked about the GMA incident by reporters, he smiled, nodded, and smoothly shifted the topic to gratitude and growth. It wasn't avoidance. It was intention. His refusal to replay the controversy wasn't just classy. It was revolutionary in an era driven by endless rehashing. Critics and commentators began referencing his walk-off as a pivotal shift in celebrity media dynamics. Even rivals who once chased shock value began reconsidering their approaches. What had been a tense television moment evolved into a landmark in media history because of what didn't happen after. Dwayne Johnson didn't rant, didn't retaliate, and didn't gloat. He moved on, stronger, louder in his silence than most are with a microphone. And that more than any headline was the final word. Asterisk.